Hi guys, welcome! In a previous episode of my Gunslinger guide series, we've discussed the auto attack build for farming. This time we'll take a closer look at another build for Gunslingers, which is the pistol physical skill damage build. This is the third episode of the series wherein we'll discuss the stats, skills, runes, equipment, cards, and tips that can help you prepare for a specific Gunslinger build. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. Gunslingers can equip a pistol-type weapon which allows them to use a variety of AoE physical damage skills that deal continuous damage over time. Thus, the pistol build is excellent for large-scale combat such as in GVG and in PVE instances. The casting range of most pistol skills such as Desperado is only up to 5 meters, so you really need to be aggressive and dive into the middle of the battle. Don't worry though, as Gunslingers are not as squishy as other classes due to their defensive skills, which we've talked about in the first episode of this series. They also have channeling skills like Crossfire and Dance of Death, which allow them to attack surrounding enemies while moving. Another notable thing about pistol skills is that it can trigger the passive skill Chain Action, which grants 30% chance to deal 1.5 times damage. Gunslingers' powerful AoE damage coupled with high mobility makes them an excellent choice in both PvE and PvP. The only drawback is that casting pistol skills will consume your bullets rapidly, so you need to time your reloads carefully. First, let's discuss the important stats for this build. For stat point allocation, prioritize maxing out Agi, since it plays a big factor in the damage calculation of Crossfire and Desperado. There's even a Class S rune that boosts the damage of Desperado by up to 0.1% for every point of Agi. Second, allot sufficient points on Dex, as it is a stat that primarily increases range physical attack, hence it will be the foundation for increasing your DPS. In addition, Dex also increases hit, which ensures that your skills won't miss on high fleet targets in PvP. As for the remaining points, you can allot it on any stat of your choice. If you're going to use a Mastering Star card in your garment, then it's more beneficial to pump Luck than Dex to get higher physical damage increase. But for PvP, you need to have Fit for survivability. Other stats that are significant for this build are range damage, physical damage increase, physical penetration, skill damage, ignore death, as well as race, size, and element damage modifiers, as these stats will enhance your pistol skill damage. Having high movement speed is also essential to hit more targets while channeling Crossfire and Dance of Death. Up next, let's discuss the most important skills for this build. First, for the Gunslinger skill tree, prioritize putting points on the following skills. First is Rapid Shower, which is a single target physical damage skill that can be casted from a range of 5 meters, consuming 1 bullet. There's an AC rune that allows you to instantly reload 1 bullet upon casting Rapid Shower, and thus you no longer need to reload unless you trigger the Chain Action passive skill. I think this will be a good skill for early game farming due to low cooldown and reduced reloading, but for late game you can just leave Rapid Shower at level 5 to unlock the next skill. Next is Piercing Shot, which is a single target physical damage skill that deals damage to all enemies on the bullet's path and has a 30% chance of inflicting bleed status. It has a range of 8 meters and consumes 1 bullet. Its damage can be further enhanced with these AC runes. Similar to Rapid Shower, it's not commonly used when you reach 4th job, so you may just allot 7 points on it as prerequisite for the next skill. Then we have Pistol Mastery passive skill, which grants plus 80 attack, plus 60 hit, and plus 10% physical damage increase when equipped with a pistol, so you should max it to level 20. As for the remaining skill points, you can allot it on the following auxiliary skills: Level 5 Fallen Angel, Level 10 Warning Shot, Level 4 Vigilance, Level 10 Bulletproof Armor, Level 4 Frag Grenade, and Level 5 Smoke Grenade. Next, for the Rebel 3rd job, the most important skills to get are: first is Crossfire, which is a channeling AoE skill that consumes 3 bullets and deals physical damage to all enemies in a rectangular area in front of you every 0.5 seconds. So within its 3-second channeling time, you'll be able to deal damage 6 times. With these runes, Crossfire will deal higher damage. Next we have Desperado, which is an AoE skill that consumes 3 bullets and deals physical damage to random enemies within a 5-meter radius around you. Aside from increasing your Desperado damage, these runes will also allow you to restore HP when Desperado hits an enemy and cast Desperado automatically after using Fallen Angel. This will be the primary damaging skill for 3rd job due to its wide range and short duration. After that, max out Hand Feel and the related AC rune, which reduces the flee, def, crit, and crit resistance of targets hit by pistol attacks. This debuff lasts for 10 seconds and can stack. So with max 10 stacks, the enemy will lose a total of 250 flee, 2000 def, 50 crit, and 50 crit resistance. Then we have the Coin Flip skill, which grants a 2-minute buff depending if you flip heads or tails. If it's heads, your luck and magic attack will increase. If it's tails, your agi and movement speed will increase. So you only have 50% chance in getting one of the buffs. But if you have the 3rd line of this class S rune, casting Coin Flip will grant the effects of both heads and tails. As for the remaining skill points, you can allot it on the following auxiliary skills. Level 5 Magazine Expansion, Level 1 Taking Cover, and Level 9 Crimson Marker. Once you've changed into Tyrant 4th job, you can prioritize allocating your time quicksand on the following skills. First is Dance of Death, which is the primary damaging skill for the pistol build. It is a channeling AoE skill that consumes 4 bullets and deals physical damage to random enemies within a 5-meter radius around you every 0.3 seconds. Within its 3-second channeling time, you'll be able to deal damage 10 times, so you'll be able to stack the debuffs of Hand Feel. Its damage is based on your Desperado skill, so all damage multipliers for Desperado will also affect the damage of Dance of Death. Its enhancement skills will reduce the movement speed of enemies and reduce the damage you receive while channeling. Next, we have the Mobile Shooting passive skill, which allows you to move while Crossfire or Dance of Death is channeling. This is really needed so that you can follow your target while the skill is channeling, preventing them from escaping. Another useful passive skill is Chain Action, which gives you 30% chance to deal 1.5 times damage when using a pistol skill, and this will consume max 1 bullet per second when triggered. Although it's somewhat similar to critical hits, it is not affected by crit rate and crit damage stats. Then we have God's Wrath, and its enhancement skill, which grants a 15-second buff that increases your pen by 30% and ignore death by 18%. If you kill a target while the buff is still active, its duration will reset, so you will no longer need to recast it repeatedly. Other useful auxiliary skills that you should get are Rain of Fire, Blood Veil, Platinum Altar, and Bounty. But there are also must-have skills that can be obtained from runes, and they are as follows. First is the Full Firepower skill obtained from this class S rune. Using this buff skill will stop consuming any bullets within the buff's duration. Next is a Tracking Bullet passive obtained from this class S rune. This will launch a tracking bullet to a random enemy whenever you use auto attack or any pistol skill, so this will be an additional source of damage. And last is the Adrenaline skill obtained from AC runes. With this buff active, you will not lose HP for up to 4 seconds. There's also a class S rune that will trigger Adrenaline automatically when dying, so it can be an anti-fatal passive. The general skill setup when fighting boss monsters is to buff yourself first with Coin Flip, God's Wrath, Full Firepower, and Bulletproof Armor. Afterwards, you can start auto battle with both your chosen attack skills in the auto skill slot. Personally, I like using the rotation of Dance of Death and Desperado. Once you're out of bullets, just cast Fallen Angel to reload all bullets automatically and gain extra movement speed and agi for 5 seconds. If it's still on cooldown, just use the manual reload skill. Other skills that you may cast are Warning Shot to reduce the enemy's death, and Platinum Altar or Adrenaline to negate the damage you receive. If you're going to use the pistol build for farming, just put your chosen attack skill, coin flip, and God's Wrath in your auto skill bar and set your character to offline battle. I don't suggest using channeling skills for offline farming since your character won't move while the skill is channeling. In addition, always make sure that your reload skill is set to reload passively whenever you have less than 4 bullets remaining. To help improve your DPS, you may consume the following alloys and food buffs. Up next, let's discuss the most important runes to get. For Acer Monument, these are the runes that you should prioritize to help increase your damage output and utilization of skills. For advanced runes, these are the ones that you should prioritize. First is the Killing in Full Swing Class S rune with a third line effect to be able to cast Desperado after using Fallen Angel. Aim for high values on the first 2 lines for higher Desperado and Dance of Death damage multiplier. Second is the Full Firepower Class S rune, which unlocks the Full Firepower skill. You should prioritize getting high values on both duration and cooldown to maximize the time you can cast skills before needing to reload ammunition again. Third, we have the Tactical Maneuver Class S rune with third line effect to be able to reload your bullets instantly when casting Fallen Angel. The extra movement speed and shorter charging time it grants will be advantageous as well. Fourth, we have the Flying Meteor Class S rune, which unlocks the Tracking Bullet skill. Aim for decent values on the first 2 lines, as well as activating the third line effect. Fifth is the Cheating Tips Class S rune with the third line activated. This will grant the effects of both heads and tails, so you'll get extra luck, agi, and movement speed. And last, for survivability, you can get the powerful Hormone Class S rune with third line effect to be able to use Adrenaline automatically when dying. It also grants HP restore per second and abnormal status resist. As for the attribute runes, prioritize upgrading the following to increase your damage. Up next, let's dive into the suggested equipment set and cards. As mentioned earlier, the stats you should be looking for when choosing equipment are Agi, Dex, Range Damage, Physical Damage Increase, Pen, Skill Damage, Ignore Death, as well as Race, Size, and Element Damage modifiers. For weapon, there are 2 options available, one for PvE and one for PvP. For PvE, we have the Gold Lux Pistol, which increases Dex, Agi, Ignore Death, and Desperado damage. Its synth version, when refined to plus 15, will grant a massive damage boost for Desperado and Dance of Death. For PvP, we have the Red Wing Revolver, which increases Dex, Vit, Max HP, Bleeding Attack, Damage to Demi-Human, and Demi-Human damage reduction. Its synth version, when refined to plus 15, will grant 30% damage to Demi-Human, 15% Demi-Human damage reduction, 30% bleeding attack, and 10% max HP. For weapon enchantment, aim for a high PDI stat and Arch or Morale for 4th enchant. For weapon cards, it's cheaper and more efficient to use any race, size, or element damage modifier cards and just switch depending on the monster you are farming. When against boss monsters, you should aim to activate the Insight effect from a Norris card to get plus 50% Ignore Death. For PvP, it's ideal to use a Ferroni Star card for more hit and skill damage. For offhand, the best in slot is Helion Bracelet due to the massive boost in range physical damage it gives. Ideally, it should be refined to plus 10 or plus 15 for higher percent attack and range physical damage. The ideal ancient equipment alternative for Helion Bracelet is Bone Flute with plus 18% physical damage random stat. For offhand enchantment, aim for a high PDI and armor breaking for 4th enchant. For offhand cards, it's cheaper and more efficient to use any element damage modifier cards and just switch depending on the monster you're farming. But if you don't want to switch cards, then you may use any of the following cards. For armor, you can just use the new Sniper's Coat in the early game. You can craft and upgrade it using the following materials. But from mid to late game, there are lots of options for ancient equipment available, so just choose any of the following depending on which stat you are lacking. You may also opt to use a synth version of Sniper's Coat, which grants a total of 20 dex, 5% attack, 10% ignore def, and 10% physical damage at plus 15 refinement. Here are the materials for synthesizing Sniper's Coat into Hunter's combat uniform. For armor enchantment, aim for high PDI stat and arch or morale for 4th enchant. For armor cards, you may use any of the following cards. For garment, the best in slot is a high refined white Duke Manteau, as it increases attack, ignore def, and skill damage. For garment enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For garment cards, you may use any of the following cards. Just make sure that you have high luck build if using a Mastering Star card for boosting your physical damage. For footgear, you may use the new Sniper's Boots, which is exclusive for the Gunslinger class. Refining and upgrading it to Tier 8 will grant a huge boost in offensive stats. Its synth version when refined to plus 15 will be the best in slot as it increases percent attack and range damage. However, you may still use a St. Mary's cloth shoes if you already have one, as it is universal for all job classes. For footgear enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For footgear cards, you may use any of the following cards. For accessory, there's a new accessory exclusive for the Gunslinger class called Sniper's Medal, which increases dex, ignore def, and range physical damage. Its synth version grants additional 3% range physical damage at plus 15 refinement. Other options are Dog Servant, which grants dex, range attack, and damage, and extra damage to demon and brute race. Or Cat Paw Stamp, which grants dex, pen, and extra damage to undead and plant race. For enchantment, just aim for a high PDI stat. For accessory cards, just use any element or race damage modifier cards depending on the monster you're fighting. But if you don't want to switch cards, then you may use any of the following cards. For headgears, there's a lot of options for both gacha and non-gacha, so just choose the ones you already have that will give the highest boost in the following stats. As for enchantment, aside from getting high attack or hit stats, you should also aim for the following stats. Dex for head, Agi physical damage increase or morale 4th enchant for face, Agi or Dex for mouth, Agi or morale 4th enchant for back, and Dex physical damage increase or arch 4th enchant for tail. These headwear cards are also useful for increasing your DPS. Lastly, here are some things you need to prepare in advance. First, prepare 88 Big Cat coins to avail of the multi-job function and change into Gunslinger. If you want, you can use the Cryptura Academy program to become 4th job in just 2 days. However, if you already used up your chance, just save up enough job potions from events, Assistant Medal, and the Wasteland Spirit Tree. Second, for pets, you may capture the following pets that can increase your damage. Then use Talent Fruit to get the highest possible stats. Third, boost your raw stats further with Guild Blessing and Guild Prayers. For Guild Blessing, you need to max your Combat Blessing to 200. And then for Praying cards, prioritize Pen, Attack, and Ignore Def for attack cards, and Wind Damage for element cards, as most of the new monsters in Komodo are of water element. Fourth, for Oracle Mirror, you may choose to extract the attack attributes of any of the following gears, depending on your budget and the stat you're lacking. A high refined combustible knife for increasing physical penetration, a high refined claw for higher percent attack, or a high refined chieftain's axe for a huge boost in ignore def. If focusing on PVE, then another option is a high refined Bilgus Arm for extra damage to MVPs and minis. But for PvP, you can extract a high refined Abreu bow for higher demi-human damage, or Holgrahan's refined hammer for breaking the enemy's weapon and armor. Fifth, for Ancient Relics, the options for Blue Relics are Waste's Sigh for boosting dex and percent attack, or Valkyrie's Protection for boosting ignore def. but for purple relics, you can just choose depending on your playstyle in PvP. And lastly, invest in lots of attack, unlock, and deposit rewards in your adventure handbook. Unlocking the following multi-jobs will also provide additional attributes. Alright, so far, we've discussed the stats, skills, runes, equipment cards, and tips to help you gear up for your Gunslingers pistol skill build. Stay tuned for the 4th and final episode of my Gunslinger guide series, as we'll focus more on the stats, skills, runes, equipment, and tips for the rifle build of Gunslingers. Alright, that's it for this video guys. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed watching this guide. If you're new here, I would love for you to consider subscribing by hitting the red subscribe button down below. I would love to have you back. Thank you for watching and see you in our next episode.